Everyone laughed at her in high school. Now the millionaire agrees, inviting. "I'm not doing it, Callum. Have you lost your mind?" Elijah Moore stared at his phone screen where his old college roommate's message blinked like a bad idea waiting to happen. "Come on, Elijah. You owe me from that digital circuit's final senior year." Callum's voice crackled through the speaker, stubborn as ever. "Besides, it's just one night." Elijah spun in his office chair, facing the wall of glass that overlooked the rainy skyline of Seattle. The design studio buzzed quietly outside his door, but inside the air hung thick with the weight of memories. Being founder of Morehouse Architects meant prestige, control, solitude, and apparently being on Callum Drew's "You Owe Me" list. "That was 11 years ago," Elijah muttered, minimizing the message and tapping open the files Callum had attached. Photos of college days flickered to life. He paused at one, a girl standing alone at the back of a robotics club meeting, hiding behind a camera lens and a tangle of auburn hair. "Naomi Lynn?" he asked aloud, stunned. "She's a wildlife photographer now," Callum continued, "published in National Geographic, did a solo exhibit in Paris last year. Not bad for the girl we all ignored." Elijah frowned. "I didn't ignore her." "No, you were worse. You were indifferent. That smile you gave everyone else, you never gave it to her." The accusation landed heavier than expected. Elijah leaned back, staring at the city. "That's right. Why do you care, Callum?" There was a pause. "Because I was the guy who once swapped out her camera batteries so she'd miss submitting her final project. I want to make things right. And you're the only one she might actually say yes to. This is ridiculous. Invite her to the Rainlight Foundation Gala next month. Let her walk into that ballroom like she owns it." Elijah hesitated, glancing at the RSVP list for the gala his firm was sponsoring. Half of Seattle's design and art elite would be there. He sighed. "Fine, I'll reach out, but if she throws the email straight into the trash, this is on you. Deal." Her contact's on her website. And, Elijah, thanks. After the call, Elijah sat in silence for a moment, then searched Naomi Lynn Photography. Her website loaded with a background of jungle mist and tiger eyes, then a portrait. Her, still behind a camera, but stronger now, still wary. He clicked contact and began typing. "Hi Naomi, we were classmates at Northwest University." Delete. "Naomi, my name is Elijah Moore. I'm reaching out about the Rainlight Gala." Delete. He took a breath and tried again. "Naomi, this might be out of the blue. Callum Drew gave me your contact. He's roped us both into some sort of reckoning, I think. The Rainlight Foundation is holding a gala next month. I'd be honored if you'd consider attending, with me. I understand if the answer is no, but I'd like the chance to show you that not everyone from back then stayed the same." He stared at the cursor and hit send. Then he waited for judgment, or maybe forgiveness. Naomi Lynn read the email 3 times. She was on a wooden platform deep in the Taman Negara rainforest, sorting through camera traps and SD cards, when the satellite ping finally delivered the message. Elijah Moore. She hadn't heard that name in over a decade, but it hit like a gust of wind slamming an open tent. He had been polite back then, coldly polite, the kind of guy who shook your hand but never really looked you in the eye. While his dorm mates made jokes at her expense, he just said nothing. And silence, Naomi knew, was its own kind of cruelty. Daxite. She stared out at the canopy. The sun was setting, casting amber light over the trees. Somewhere below, gibbons howled into the evening. "Elijah Moore wants to take me to a gala," she muttered. By the time she was back at her laptop in her off-grid cabin that evening, she still hadn't answered. She made tea, paced, watched the moths flutter at the window screen. She pulled up the gala website, Rainlight Foundation, celebrating visionaries in art and design. Of course he'd be there. She remembered the boy with the perfect sketchbooks, the one professors loved, the one who didn't flinch when classmates mispronounced her name or laughed at her thrift store hoodies. He just didn't see her. Now he did. Maybe. Naomi closed her laptop. She opened her sketchpad instead. The pages were filled with faces of animals. A lemur with half a jaw, a hawk missing an eye, fragile creatures she had captured and helped rescue. She flipped to a blank page and drew the first lines of a mask. Whoa. She didn't want to be recognized. Not right away. She didn't want to be admired. She wanted to be seen, on her own terms. 2 days later, After returning to the city and resuming her editing work at her shared studio in Fremont, she replied, "Elijah, thanks for your message and your honesty. I don't usually attend events like this. I've skipped every alumni gathering, for reasons I'm guessing you understand. But let's make a deal. I'll go to the gala with you under one condition. I'll be wearing a mask the entire evening. No one sees my face unless I choose to remove it. If that makes you uncomfortable, I understand." Naomi. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Within minutes, the reply came, "Naomi, intriguing condition. Can we discuss it over coffee when you're back in Seattle? My treat. You name the time and place." Elijah. She smiled despite herself, then replied, "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Heron's Nest Cafe. I don't do lattes. Just plain coffee in quiet corners." The Heron's Nest Cafe sat at the edge of Gasworks Park, tucked beneath ivy-covered eaves and fogged-up windows that smelled of espresso and earth. Elijah arrived early, again. He had a nervous habit of over-preparing. He'd ordered 2 kinds of muffins, black coffee, a green tea just in case, and sat facing the door. At 8:03 a.m., Naomi walked in wearing a faded gray parka, hiking boots still dusted with red soil, and a beanie that barely hid the auburn curls falling over her eyes. A camera strap hung across her chest like a bandolier. "You brought breakfast for an entire bird-watching tour," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "I wasn't sure what you liked." He pushed the coffee closer. "Figured I'd try to cover my bases." Naomi accepted the cup but didn't sip. She looked at him, really looked, and Elijah felt it. The same piercing focus she once gave injured falcons and frightened deer. "You still don't make eye contact easily," she said. He blinked. "Is that a problem?" "No, just familiar." There was a pause. A long, sharp pause. "About the mask," Elijah offered. Naomi nodded. "It's not a game, not a fashion statement. It's control." He nodded. "Like a lens." That got her attention. "A mask filters what the world sees," he continued. "Just like a camera frame does. I get it." Naomi finally sipped her coffee. "Exactly. But why say yes at all?" he asked. "You could have ignored me, blocked the email, gone on with your life." Naomi considered this, her thumb running along the cardboard sleeve of her cup. "Because part of me wants to see if you've changed," she said, "if any of you have, but mostly because I've changed, and I want to prove that to myself." They sat quietly, the hum of conversation and distant hiss of the espresso machine filling the space between them. "If we're doing this," Naomi finally said, "we need to practice." Elijah raised an eyebrow. "Practice?" "Public places, dinner, conversation. If we walk into that gala like 2 strangers forced together by an old debt, they'll sniff it out in seconds." He nodded slowly. "So, a rehearsal." "A series of them," she confirmed. "Thursday night. You pick the place. Somewhere quiet. No old classmates. And Elijah? Yes, wear something that doesn't look like it costs more than my car. If we're pretending to be comfortable, let's at least try." He smiled, the first real one she remembered ever seeing from him, noted. As she stood to leave, Naomi glanced back. "And Elijah?" "Yeah? Don't flinch so much when people look at you. You're not invisible either." Then she was gone, boots echoing against the tiled floor. Naomi stepped into the dim workshop just as the wind picked up outside, rattling the chimes strung along the eaves. The smell of brass polish and lacquer drifted through the air. The studio, tucked behind a bookstore in Seattle's Capitol Hill, was part curiosity shop, part museum. Masks of every shape and era lined the walls. Venetian, tribal, theatrical, each one a frozen story, waiting to be told again. "You're the one who sent the sketch?" a voice called from the back. "Yes," Naomi replied. An older woman emerged from behind a bead curtain, silver braid draped over one shoulder, hands stained with paint. Her name was Maëlle. Her French accent curled gently over every word. Maëlle studied Naomi the way Naomi once studied orphaned cubs, intensely but not unkindly. "You want it in 3 weeks?" Maëlle asked, raising an eyebrow. With this level of detail? I can pay extra, Naomi said quickly. Rush fee, whatever you need. Mael waved her off. I don't care about money, I care about why. Naomi hesitated. It's for a gala. I don't want to be recognized. Mael stepped closer, her fingers tracing the lines of Naomi's pencil sketch. This is not a mask, she said softly. It is armor. Naomi's posture tensed. Is that a problem? No, Mael said. But armor always means you expect battle. She gestured for Naomi to sit. Tell me, who are you fighting? Naomi sat slowly, eyes landing on a nearby half-finished mask. Its paint cracked, its surface split down the center. The past, she answered finally. Old ghosts. A version of myself I don't want to be anymore. Mael nodded knowingly. Then we make the mask strong, but not impenetrable. She picked up a tape measure and leaned in. Hold still. As Mael took measurements, Naomi let her eyes roam the walls again. Each mask had a plaque. Joy, guilt, pride, shame. Mael noticed her gaze. They're named after the feeling they were made to protect. What should mine be called? Naomi asked quietly. The mask maker paused, then smiled. Becoming. When Naomi stood to leave, Mael handed her a small card. One condition. Naomi tilted her head. What's that? You must bring me a photo of your dress. The mask must not compete, it must complete. Naomi smirked. I'm not even sure I'm wearing a dress yet. Then find one, Mael said, already turning back to her tools. And be sure it matches a warrior. Outside, Naomi stood for a long moment before getting into her car. Armor, she thought. Or maybe just permission to be seen. Elijah was already seated when Naomi arrived at La Scala, a narrow little Italian restaurant tucked between a secondhand bookstore and a florist that only opened after dusk. The lighting was low, the tables close together, and the waiters spoke in soft, musical Italian. You clean up well, Naomi said, sliding into the booth across from him. And by that I mean, you're not wearing a three-piece suit for once. I'm trying, Elijah replied, tugging at the collar of his button-down shirt. Though I had to stop myself from bringing blueprints to dinner. Naomi laughed, genuinely. That bad? Occupational hazard, he admitted. I see lines and angles in everything. I see motion, she replied. In people, in animals. I wait for the stillness between moments. That's when I take the shot. They fell into silence, but this time it wasn't awkward. Their food came, tagliatelle for him, grilled eggplant and risotto for her. They ate slowly, trading bites and stories. Naomi told him about the months she spent photographing elephants in Botswana and the time she got stuck in a tree in Sumatra to avoid a curious tiger. Elijah told her about the church restoration project in Spain and how he used to sketch birds as a child but stopped when classmates laughed. You ever think about what we carry from back then? He asked, swirling his wine glass. From school, from people we barely knew. Naomi looked at him carefully. You mean what we let define us? He nodded. I used to think ignoring the cruelty made me better than the ones who participated. And now? Now I think silence just makes it easier for the cruelty to grow. Naomi didn't reply right away. Then she said, I once shot a photo of a rescued jaguar. Her face was scarred from traps. But in the photo, she looked regal, untouched. People praised the beauty. They didn't ask about the pain. He looked at her, understanding. What we show and what we hide. She nodded. By the time dessert came, a shared slice of tiramisu, they were leaning in closer without noticing. We should do this again, Elijah said quietly. You mean, practice more? Naomi teased. Sure, if that's what we're still calling it. Naomi sipped her espresso, watching him over the rim. Next week? But I picked a place. He smiled. Deal. Outside, they lingered by her car. Elijah, she said before getting in, you said people carry things from back then. What are you still carrying? He hesitated. Then, regret. And maybe, hope. Naomi opened the car door. Then, maybe this is your chance to set it down. She left him standing under a street lamp, city lights casting long shadows behind him. He didn't move for a long time. The Rainlight Foundation Gala glimmered like a glass house filled with stars. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Soft jazz filtered through the vaulted hall. Art pieces lined the walls, some modern, some ancient, all chosen to honor the night's theme, transformation through vision. Outside the venue, Naomi sat in the passenger seat of Elijah's car, fingers trailing the edge of the silver mask Mael had crafted. Filigree vines spiraled across it, embedded with tiny shards of obsidian and moonstone that caught the light like whispers. It was bold, delicate, and unlike anything she'd worn before. "You don't have to do this," Elijah said gently. Naomi adjusted the mask and looked at him through the reflection in the car mirror. "I do," she said, "but I'm glad I'm not doing it alone." They walked into the ballroom hand in hand, eyes turned, but not in recognition. Not yet. Elijah, in a soft charcoal suit, nodded at familiar faces, shaking hands, murmuring greetings. Naomi walked beside him like a phantom in moonlight, her dark green gown flowing like water, her mask gleaming with every step. No one knew who she was. And that was exactly the point. At the check-in table, the hostess paused. "Name?" "Elijah Moore," he said. "And guest?" Naomi simply nodded. Her blank name tag was clipped beside his. Inside, voices buzzed. Old professors, gallery directors, alumni, patrons. Naomi scanned the crowd and spotted a few people she remembered from college, some who once whispered behind her back, others who never knew she existed. She didn't shrink. She stood taller. "You okay?" Elijah asked, offering her a glass of champagne. "I will be," she answered, scanning the room from behind the safety of silver. As the evening progressed, people began to ask questions. "So, how do you know Elijah? Are you in the arts too? Have we met before?" To each one, Naomi responded with poised vagueness. "We met at a gallery. In France." Or, "Through work. Sort of." Or, when she was feeling bold, "No, but I remember you." She could see it in their eyes. Confusion, curiosity, faint unease. They couldn't place her, and that made them unsure. And that, finally, made her powerful. At one point, Elijah whispered, "You're incredible." "No," she murmured back. "I'm free." Halfway through the evening, Elijah leaned in. "Ready to dance?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded. They stepped onto the marble floor. A slow song played. As he took her hand and settled his other on her waist, he said, "You're not hiding, you're choosing." "That's the difference." She met his gaze through the mask. "And you? Why are you here tonight?" He paused. To walk beside someone brave enough to face who she was and show the world who she became. Naomi blinked back something sharp in her chest. In that moment, under the chandeliers and music, she didn't feel like the girl they'd ignored. She felt like the woman they couldn't forget. Naomi stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching her past walk straight toward her in 4-inch heels and a practiced smile. "Excuse me," the woman said, tilting her head. I couldn't help but wonder, have we met? Naomi blinked. Ashley Wynn. The name came back like static in her ears. Ashley, who once made Naomi walk out of class early just to avoid another round of whispered taunts. Ashley, who once asked loudly if Naomi bought her camera at a pawn shop. Naomi smiled behind her mask. "I'm not sure," she replied coolly. "I've been out of the country." Ashley's eyes narrowed. "You just seem familiar. Are you in design?" "Photography," Naomi said. "Wildlife, mostly. I capture what others overlook." Ashley sipped her wine. "That's cute. So how did you land Elijah Moore?" The question wasn't really a question. It was a dagger wrapped in perfume. Naomi glanced toward the dance floor, where Elijah now spoke to the gala director, utterly at ease. "Maybe," she said, "he just sees me." Ashley's smile thinned. "You know, his usual type was—" "Safe?" Naomi interrupted. "Predictable?" Ashley paused. "Pretty." Naomi tilted her head. "Funny. I've never thought of masks as less beautiful than faces. Just more honest." Ashley stepped back slightly, unsettled. Naomi leaned in. "You used to call me invisible. Tonight I made the guest list. You didn't recognize me." And you still don't. Wait, Ashley whispered, blinking. Naomi gave a small bow of her head. That's the power of becoming. Then she walked away. Outside the ballroom doors, she paused and took a long breath. Her hand reached for the mask's ribbon. The silk slipped through her fingers. Inside, Elijah turned at the same moment and saw her standing in the light spilling from the hallway, face fully revealed. The room stilled. Someone gasped. Then silence. And then soft applause from a corner, followed by another. Then another. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. Elijah crossed the floor to her without hesitation. "You're sure?" he whispered. Naomi nodded. "I didn't take it off for them." "Who then?" She looked at him. "Me." 3 days after the gala, Naomi stood in the break room of the Northwest Conservation and Rehabilitation Center, half listening to her coworker drone about camera grants when her phone buzzed. One new email. Subject, donation approval and nameplate confirmation. Her stomach flipped. She opened it slowly. The Rainlight Foundation had forwarded donor recognition paperwork for a major anonymous contribution made the previous year. Funds that had expanded the center's capacity, funded camera traps in endangered territories, and paid for her last expedition. The donor had just come forward. Name, Elijah Moore. Naomi stared at the screen. "Elijah," she whispered. She found him that evening, standing by the waterfront near his studio, skipping stones, lost in thought. "You didn't tell me," she said. He turned, not surprised. "Wasn't the point." "You gave my department $500,000. He shrugged. "You give the world photographs that make people care about animals they'll never meet. I thought you could do more with a bigger lens." Naomi folded her arms. "You didn't want credit?" "I didn't want to confuse the gesture with guilt," he said. "I just wanted to be part of your good work." She studied him. "And were you part of it?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But it felt right, helping you from the background." Naomi stepped closer, her voice soft. "You don't need to stay in the background anymore." He met her eyes. "I wasn't sure I deserved a place in the foreground." "You didn't. Not back then." A beat of silence. "But people change," she added, "if they're brave enough to try." He laughed once, quietly. "Is this your way of inviting me in?" "No," Naomi said, lips twitching into a smile. "It's my way of saying, you're already here." As the wind picked up, she reached into her satchel and pulled something out. The mask. Its silver surface still gleamed, but now it looked smaller, like it had served its purpose. "I'm giving it to Maëlle," she said. "She wants to display it." "As a reminder of what?" "That some masks aren't meant to hide us," she said. "Just give us time to remember who we are." He reached for her hand. She didn't flinch. "Naomi," he said, his voice quieter now, "would you let me take you to dinner again? No masks, no practice?" "Just you," he said, "and me. Trying." She nodded. "Then yes." 2 weeks later, Elijah stood in the sunlit lobby of the Northwest Conservation and Rehabilitation Center, scanning the walls. They were covered with portraits, not of animals, but of children. Children with cleft lips, burned scars, and other facial differences. Each one smiling, proud, holding one of Naomi's photographs of them in the wild, with animals that bore scars of their own. Naomi walked beside him, holding a clipboard and wearing a canvas jacket covered in smudges of dirt and joy. "This," she said, gesturing to the wall, "is the gallery of brave faces. Every kid who comes through our partner program gets their portrait taken. Some ask to wear costumes. Others want to pose with their rescue animal. But every single one wants to be seen." Elijah stared at one photo in particular. A girl with a stitched lip standing beside a rescued fox with a mangled paw. Both looked fiercely defiant. "She reminds me of someone," he said. Naomi smiled. "She's named after a tree that never falls, no matter how hard the wind hits it." He glanced at her. "Do you ever wonder if we carry things so long they just become part of us?" "All the time," she answered. "But sometimes those things stop being weights. They become roots." They continued walking through the center, past the art room, the animal recovery pens, and the open-air viewing deck that looked out on the forest. Naomi paused at the donor wall. There, newly added, was a bronze plaque, the Elijah Moore Pavilion, for the unseen, the unheard, and the ones still becoming. Naomi ran her fingers over the lettering. "You should have told me," she said softly. Elijah stood beside her, not touching the wall, just looking. "I didn't want you to feel you owed me anything," he said, "but I do owe you." "For what?" "For helping me see," he answered. "Not just you, me. What I missed, what I ignored." Naomi turned to him. "Then let's stop owing. Let's just keep showing up." He nodded. Later that afternoon, as Naomi guided a group of visiting teens through a photography workshop, Elijah lingered in the background, watching as she knelt beside a shy boy with a surgical scar across his face. "Show me how you see yourself," she said gently, handing him a camera. Elijah didn't interrupt. He simply watched the way the boy's shoulders straightened, the way Naomi smiled without needing to be recognized. When the boy lifted the camera, Elijah realized Naomi wasn't just helping them be seen. She was teaching them to see themselves. The rain had just stopped when Naomi stepped into Mael's studio one last time. The sunlight streamed through stained glass, catching the edge of a silver filigree mask displayed proudly in a glass case. A small plaque beneath it read, "Becoming," worn, then released, donated by Naomi Lynn. Mael looked up from her workbench. "It suits the room, doesn't it?" Naomi nodded. "It suits the story." "You brought the dress photo," Mael teased. "I brought something better." Naomi held out a small framed print. Her and Elijah standing in front of the gallery of brave faces, surrounded by children, the air full of light. Mael took it gently, then placed it beside the mask. "Perfect." Across town, Elijah waited outside the Crawford Middle School, where Naomi had been invited to speak at a photography and conservation assembly. She stepped out to meet him. No camera slung across her shoulder, no field boots, no mask. Just Naomi, still quiet, still steady, but no longer hidden. "You're late," she teased. "I brought coffee," he replied, holding out a cup. "Black, no complications." She took it and smiled. "Learning." They walked slowly toward the park. No rush, no rolls, just them. "Do you remember the first thing you said to me at that cafe?" she asked. "Walk." He furrowed his brow. "I said you looked familiar." "No. You said I brought enough pastries for a small army." He laughed. "That does sound like me." Naomi stopped. "You were trying too hard back then. Now you're just trying." Elijah met her gaze. "And is that enough?" "It's everything," she said. They sat on a bench overlooking the water. In the distance, kids ran through puddles. A heron perched on a log, perfectly still. "I've been thinking," Naomi said quietly, "we don't choose the first chapters of our lives, but we do get to write the rest." "And what kind of story are we writing?" Elijah asked. Naomi took his hand. "One where the hero doesn't save the girl. He walks beside her, and she saves herself." He squeezed her hand gently. In her studio, Naomi's newest project was pinned to the wall, a photo series called Unmasked. Each frame showed a person who had once hidden, behind scars, shame, or silence, standing tall, eyes forward, no masks. Some wore braces, some wore scars, all wore truth. And at the very end of the series, a quiet photo taken from behind, a woman in a silver mask walking beside a man in a charcoal suit, leaving a gala together, hand in hand, into the night. No titles, no names, just two people, finally seen. If this story moved you, reminded you that healing is real, or renewed your belief in second chances, we invite you to subscribe to Healing Stories. Here, we share real-life journeys of strength, love, and hope. Stories that speak straight to the soul. Thank you for being here. And always remember, no matter how far you fall, there's always a way back to the light. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know.